Organizing next Tuesday.
Good evening, everyone. We will go ahead and call the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming this evening. And Secretary Crowell, will you read the roll call, please?
President Isham?
Here.
Trustee John Wayne Stewart?
Here.
Trustee James Wood?
Here.
Vice President Deanne Maynard?
Here.
Secretary Mary Crowell? Here. Trustee Bud Fifield?
Here.
Treasurer Erica Willard?
Here.
And Superintendent Jeff Manti?
Here. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any comments or concerns of citizens present? Please step to the podium and say your name and address for the record.
My name is Michaela Procopio, and I live on 5340 Peacock Road, Wesley, Michigan, 49251. Today I have come to speak of a rising issue, the denial of the seniors' own pictures being allowed into the yearbook. It is a privilege, a right for the seniors to have their own pictures in their yearbook. Ever since I started high school, I looked forward to being a senior, as did other members of my class. As a senior, you have certain rights. Senior skip day, getting out of school 2 weeks before the rest of the school. However, 2 years ago, the seniors had another privilege, the senior campout, and that graduating class made one mistake, and now future seniors can no longer enjoy that privilege. Now, something as simple yet memorable as putting the seniors' own pictures and should not be taken away. The senior class did nothing to deserve this punishment. This senior class should not be penalized because there are some who aren't responsible to turn in their picture. This is our yearbook, not our advisors. This is the yearbook we pay for. This is our book, our memories. And in our last year, our right to have our own pictures in there should not be taken away. Having your own picture taken has been a tradition for many generations. My dad and his sisters still have their senior pictures and their yearbooks. Someday, I want to be able to show my kids my senior pictures in my yearbook. All I ask is that you let this tradition continue. All I ask is that you let the seniors have their privilege that they've earned. All I ask is that I let us have our memories. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? State your name and address for the record.
My name is Brooke James. I live at 4240 Ridley Road, Western Michigan, 19254. I'm here to speak about the senior pictures being allowed in the yearbook. It is unbelievable that something as simple has turned into such a complication. Having asked the previous adult in charge of the yearbook of the difficulty, I have found that it was not more difficult to put in the senior own pictures, but took a little more time. The case being that it taking more time, seniors offered to help, but because we aren't members of the yearbook, we have not been asked for our help. We can do much more than collect pictures. We offer our help for just one thing in return, the allowance of our own senior pictures. Is it such a crime to let us have our own memories? The underclassmen have had more opportunities than us. They are able to look at their pictures and choose if they want retakes. We have not been given that opportunity. We have not been able to look at them at all. Thank you for your time.
Are there any other comments?
My name is Pat James. I live at 4240 Ridley Road, Western Michigan. This year's yearbook has become a frustrating roller coaster ride for seniors and parents. In October, I inquired with the yearbook teacher the reason for not putting senior pictures into the yearbook. She stated that she spent too much time chasing down students to get their photos in on time. I then said I didn't feel she should have to chase down any students. Students that got their photo in on time and met the requirements should have their picture in the book, and those that didn't should have their composite photo used. After some lengthy conversations and going through the proper channels, it was determined the seniors would have until December 16th to get their photo in. I then paid to have a yearbook photo made and to meet these requirements. To my surprise, my daughter came home on the 16th and said that the photos were not going to be used because 70% of the students did not turn one in. This was the first time I'd heard anything about a percentage stipulation. It was holiday break, so I told my daughter we would address it upon our return to school. The first day back, my daughter went to see the yearbook teacher. She told my daughter she was going to use the photos since people had turned them in. A few days later, she told the students once again they were not going to be used because she didn't have enough help and some of the photos were not good quality. As for the help part, my daughter and another student offered to help with the yearbook, as well as myself and Mrs. Procopio. My daughter also offered to do the entire senior portion of the yearbook. We offered to help in any way that we could. After 3 more meetings on February 3rd, it was determined that the senior pictures would be used once again. Later that evening, I was asked to try to get 50% of the pictures in 5 days' time. This meant by February 10th would be the new due date. This percentage was not met. My daughter was told on the 10th, once again, the photos would not be used. I have inquired since then, but have had no reply. In summary, I have been told several times the photos were going to be used, only to find out later they would not be. I have looked over several past yearbooks, and they all have some professional photos in them. It should not have come down to students and parents asking the board to insert senior pictures in their own yearbook. The yearbook is a student memory book that is purchased by the parents. So why has it become such an issue? If you have any more questions, feel free to contact me or email me, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
My name is Kara Procopio. I live at 5340 Peacock Road in Leslie. It is a tradition as a senior to have special pictures taken for the yearbook. There is much planning, time, and money spent on these pictures. The students who have followed the guidelines for their photos deserve to have their special senior picture in their yearbook.
Thank you.
My name is Jana Lynn Willard. I live at 3120 Churchill Road, Leslie, Michigan. And I'm also here to speak on behalf of the students and the parents that would like the senior photos put in the yearbook. We have been given deadlines, 2 or 3 in fact, and we have met every deadline. In fact, last week we received the school announcement message, the automated message, and even that message said, you have until Friday to submit your photo. Every senior that submits the photo will be entered in the yearbook. The students that do not comply with this deadline will have their composite photos entered into the yearbook. In addition to that, I want to make a point that I haven't even seen the composite photo. I have no idea what it looks like. I contacted LifeTouch, went there personally to view the photo and see if it was acceptable to go in a senior yearbook, and they told me that I could not look at it because it was under the control of the school. So then I contacted Ms. Dyer asking if I could look at the photo, and she also said no, that there was no way to do that and no way to get retakes. So I'm paying for a yearbook for my senior, and I have no idea what the photo looks like. Unacceptable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or concerns of the citizens present?
Well, yes, I guess, I have some questions about this. So, is what's happening is the children are going out and they're getting their senior pictures taken, and most of them do that in usually their end of their junior year, is that correct? Normally, or in the summer or the fall? And they're not being allowed to use those pictures in the yearbook?
It was sent out last spring in a letter that said that the composite picture would be the one that was used. It was in the senior letter, and I don't know when it was sent out, but it was spring, summer, that it would be the composite picture that would be used.
Through LifeTouch?
Yeah.
I thought they were told if they,
Because it's on the
Send another
announcements,
picture.
it's on the daily announcements that we get from Mrs. Tremaine. It says that if you turn in your senior pictures, they will be used in the yearbook.
That was
Yeah,
an
that's
attempt
what
to
I
get,
thought.
that was an attempt to get more pictures.
so they're using the other.
What's the purpose of not allowing those who turned them in to have it in there?
My understanding would be that it would be uniform, and it makes the setting of the photo page easier, because yearbook is no longer a class, it's an after-school club, so there's less people involved.
Why would the date keep changing from yes to no to yes to no?
The date changed in an attempt to try to get more so that it could be done, and then it was changed again to try to get more again.
To get more of the outside pictures,
Yes.
but yet they don't want to use those now. They want to use composites.
The attempt was to get enough to make it look like it had some organization to it as opposed to 7 or 8 or 10 or 12.
But,
So where are we at right now?
yeah,
Are we using composite only, that they can't pre-screen? Or are we allowing them to use their senior pictures too? Yes, would be a big question.
And you'd be able to look into this for us and get back with
Yeah.
us.
Well, it sounds like we have volunteers to help
Right.
out.
Yeah.
I'm just confused as to why we would be so, why we would say something and then not do it. I guess I'm confused at that. Even if only one person turned it in, if they were told that it could be in the yearbook, then that person, especially if the parents paid for that, in many instances, the children probably paid for it. Shouldn't that be allowed?
I think,
We need to talk to the teacher, yeah.
I think Dan's probably right,
Yeah.
let Jeff look into
Jeff
it
needs
and
to
then
get some
come back
information.
to us
Yeah.
and just make sure that you address it before, our next board meeting if there's time constraints with it too.
Is there a criteria for
Yeah.
what the picture looks
Yeah,
like?
I believe that most of the parents have met that criteria.
Does anybody know the percentage of pictures that have been turned in versus not, versus, does anybody know?
And I believe the number is around 20,
That were turned in?
20%.
no, 20.
It was 20 photos.
Yeah.
20
That'd be-
photos? Well,
You can
about
tell,
20%.
you can tell that'd be accurate.
100
Around
kids.
20. But I mean, I think that's give or
Is that
take a
accurate?
couple.
Sorry.
Pretty close.
How many photos have been turned in?
20 photos, we
About
taught,
20.
what, 80 seniors?
Yeah.
somewhere in-
Are there any other comments or concerns with citizens present? Yes, sir.
I don't know, a waste of time or not.
Just,
For the record,
state your-
for the record, I
state
don't,
your name and your address.
for the record, my name is Kevin Willett. I reside at 3120 Churchill Road in Leslie. That also brings questions, why did only 20 kids out of 80 seniors? Did they not have the information?
No.
Is there a reason that discouraging from turning in senior pictures? And just for the heck of it, I mean, these senior pictures represent not only these kids' senior year, but the finished product that Leslie High School has put out. That's gonna be on record for the rest of their life, as long as they have those yearbooks. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Well, we see the announcements, and it's in the announcements,
Yeah, yeah, it's none as daily at school.
yeah.
One last chance, are there any other comments or concerns of citizens present? Okay. We'll move on to, recognizing. Come on up, Josh. This is a certificate on behalf of the board, to Josh Steckelberg, a contributing member of the Leslie Choir. The Board of Education and Administration of Leslie Public Schools take a great deal of pleasure in congratulating you on your accomplishments. You are to be commended for your outstanding achievements. And Josh Steckelberg was selected for the State Honors Choir, which is 1,000 choir students auditioned from across the state of Michigan, and 270 are chosen. And then he was also selected for the All-State Choir, which of 500 State Honors Choir students who auditioned, 90 were chosen. So congratulations on your choir accomplishments during the 2011-2012 school year. We appreciate your individual strengths and contributions. Thank you for representing your school and community in such a fine manner. We are proud of you and wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
want to publicly recognize Cody Davis, who was also selected to the State Honors Choir. So he was one of 270 chosen out of 1,000 students, and also to the All-State Choir. So again, the 90 of the 500 students that auditioned. And then Rachel Sonnenberg was selected to the State Honors Choir. So she was one of the 270 out of the 1,000 students who auditioned as well. So if you give both of them a hand. And of course, Ms. Schofield as well, because to have 3 students that have been selected, I think it's a pretty big deal.
Very.
You wanna say how many ones you had at districts?
I had 17 events. I had 16 ones and 1 2.
Wow.
And Rachel was sick today, and Cody is in a voice lesson with voice professor MSU tonight. So they regret not being here. Thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. This is a motion to approve the consent agenda, the February 13th, 2012 agenda, the minutes of January 9th, 2012 annual organizational meeting, the minutes of February 1st, 2012 workshop meeting, the bills in the amount of $352,912.89 be approved for payment as presented, the P-card statement, and then the general fund budget report and food service fund budget report as of January 31st, 2012. Moved by Deanne, supported by John, that the Board of Education approve the February 13th, 2012 agenda, the minutes of January 9th, 2012 organizational meeting, the minutes of February 1st, 2012 workshop meeting, the bills in the amount of $352,912.89 be approved for payment as presented, the P-card statement, the general fund budget report, and food service fund budget report as of January 31st, 2012. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. We'll move on to correspondence, and there is quite a large amount of correspondence in this board packet. The first enclosure 1 is the school law notes. Enclosure 2 is the Ingham Intermediate School District board briefs. Enclosure 3 is the ISOA meeting minutes from February 1st, 2012. Enclosure 4 is the Michigan Council of Teachers of English. Enclosure 5 is a thank you letter to James Wood for donations, for book donations to the high school. Enclosure 6 is a thank you letter to Teresa Steely and David Steely for donation to Woodworth literacy programs. And then enclosure 7 is thank you letters to the Hazel Bauman family for donation to Woodworth vocal music program. And then enclosure 8 is a thank you letter from the Eden United Brethren Church to the district. And then enclosure 9 is a thank you letter from the Pink Hawk Project to the district. And then enclosure 10 is a thank you letter from the Gideons International to the district as well. Yes, you can.
Just for the audience, the Michigan Council of Teachers of English highlights one of our teachers, Mr. Laird. So it's nice to see
What was the gift from Eden? I guess I missed that. What was the specific gift?
Eden United Brethren
Was it a,
in enclosure 8.
right, was it just a, oh, it's just, excuse me, I see that. It's a memory, it was a gift. And the gift from Gideon's was a Bible for the high school? Is that right?
So those were,
I'm just curious.
right,
It was in memory
it as a memory of some.
I'm sorry.
in memory of.
Okay,
so the district makes donations on behalf of individuals for different situations, and these were thank you letters
right,
from the individuals.
right, I understand that. I'm sorry, I didn't see the donation, the monetary donation from Eden. I didn't see that at the bottom, and I'm not seeing what was the donation from the Gideons, but it was obviously a Bible. Okay. Thank you.
Turn it over to to Jeff for the informational reports.
Okay, and our first one is Tina Monroe, who's going to speak to us about some assumptions and some things for the upcoming budget.
Ever changing.
Daily, hourly?
Yeah. As a side note here, when I put this document together, it was on Wednesday, and some of these things where I say one-time funds as of Thursday, now they're not one-time funds, so this is going to be a lot of changes between now and I'm sure up until June. But I do want to address these one-time funds in the governor's state or school aid budget proposal. They're back in. The best practices the criteria looks different though for 12-13 than it is for this year. Could also be up to $100 per pupil. It's not going to be an all or nothing. It's, it looks like this year or next year it's going to be based on student outcomes at different levels and different subjects. So the district could get $30, $60, or the full $100 per pupil in best practices money. There are additional funds for the MIPSers retirement credit. The school aid budget proposal has the offset an additional $15 per student. So that would be about an additional $20,000 from what the district's getting this year. Currently, the offset is $86 per pupil this year. Another assumption that we're going on that we've heard also as of Thursday with the state aid, the foundation will remain the same at $6,846 per student, and that again is local and state funds combined. We're projecting a special ed claim of probably a reduction of about 7 to 10%. I'm guessing right around the mark, maybe could be $60,000 less next year. The pupil count, we're going to run 3 different scenarios. The pupil count, we're going to go with plus minus 12 and then stay the same as this year, which the blended count is 1,383 for FTE. On the expenditure side, we'll have the step increases, potential increase in the salary scale. We're going to go with increases for health insurance at a 7, 11, and 15%. The last 2 years, I think it has been running right around 10, 11% per year increase. The retirement rate, back last May, and they said 27.37%, and that seems to be the same amount this year. Also in the state aid or the school aid budget, 13-14 looks as if it's going to be 31.21%. So when you hear these percents, keep in mind for every 1 percentage point increase, that's around $60,000 based on the district's payroll, budgeted payroll right now. Also in the assumption will be some district-wide improvements, which there's a roofing project that needs to be done, and some technology needs. So, any questions?
No, this is just the start, and then.
Yeah.
This is just the start.
And again, it's all proposed. I mean, this could look completely different by June, so.
Last year retirement went from, wasn't it
22?
19 or 20?
It was 20.66, I think, to 24.46.
The health insurance is, I think, around 11%. I know my
That's what it
company-
has been, yeah, the
my
last few
company, they're
years.
telling us 25%.
Yeah, we usually find out in May what that is. That's why I kind of like to run on some of these variables that we just don't know. We run a few different scenarios.
The pupil accounting, the plus or minus 12 is kind of a number that Tina and I looked at based on foreign exchange students we typically get, but you can't always count on getting foreign exchange students, so.
We're looking at roofs where, at the middle school? Is that where the next roof project was?
Troy, roofs.
Roofs at the middle school, is that where you're headed
Yeah,
next?
the one on the far end, we had a major problem last spring, and we think we'll get it through this spring, and it's gotta be replaced.
And then what are we looking at?
We lowered last year we lowered the Last year, we've always had about 62,000 in building
Okay.
improvements, district improvement. And last year, I lowered it to 42 to help if next year, this year, or next coming year, up to 70. So
Okay.
we've been planning that for about 2 years.
And then what are our technology needs, Tammy? Or what's in this proposed?
So this was a discussion between Jeff and I think,
Oh,
was it
okay.
30,000?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the 30,000 that,
That was taken out last year?
Yes.
Gotcha.
because the longer you get behind technology, the harder,
You're right.
harder it is to catch up, so. Questions?
Thank you, Tim.
The administrators and I are starting to begin to work on this, but it was, until last week the governor spoke, it was hard to make, hard to do much.
Hard to throw the dart at the board that's not there yet, huh?
Yeah. We've asked Sue Falk to come in and give us an update on where the Wild 100 project is.
Back in the corner again. That's all right, that's a good place to be. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I have some great news. We have a conditional construction commitment with Lux Construction in Dansville for the Nature Center. They were actually our low bidder out of 4 at tabulation on February 3rd. Their project coordinator is Chris Martin, for the record. And the basis of the conditional aspect is to assure that the project is brought into original budget of $605,000. Locks actually came in at $7,029. Okay. In an effort to accomplish this, some value engineering has already been done to trim the expenses without compromising the integrity of the building. There are some things that we simply couldn't compromise, and they're able to work with that based on the relocation of it. We're waiting to learn exactly how much the adjustments will improve the bottom line. We expect to hear actually later this week, and we are very optimistic that we are going to meet budget. So you'll be able to hear me from my office when I get that great news.
Will you be staying on the street?
Yeah. Yeah. After we opened the bids, it was a bit disappointing and mind-boggling, to say the least, but I do feel that this builder is outstanding. He seems to have that perfect fit as far as passion for this project. He has children in a neighboring school district that he would be delighted to have be at the property. So many things that connected him with us. That was very important. Any questions?
I would just like to add that we, if we can get this to budget, we'll be needing to come back with a motion to approve the contractor, and we'll need to do that. And Tom Greg will come in and speak to us then about the project also. So, the letter of condition was just to say, if we get to this, you'll be our people, and, so they can start working on the budget adjustments that we need to get that.
To stay within our very tight timeframes. We were concerned that maybe the pricing had something to do with the short timeframes that we needed to adhere to this year, and it actually had nothing to do with it. Some costs for construction have changed since our last bidding, and that caused some of it.
All their subs were local contractors, which was a nice.
We were very pleased to see that too. It's important for this
Yeah.
project.
One sub that was not local, but they're the only one in the area that does what we need to have done. Actually, that's one of the things we're looking at doing, so.
So how far are you apart right now, 100,000?
100,000. After Wednesday, we won't be though. We won't be. We won't be.
Just when you drive by the bank.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, this is more for Jeff, actually. Do you think that we'll need to have a special meeting to approve it, or?
There's a potential that we're gonna have to have that, so.
not delay it any
Because
longer.
once we get to the point, if we get the cost down to where we're gonna need to move fairly quick to meet our timeline. The construction company's confident that we can meet that timeline, but if we were to delay it another month, then
Right,
we can,
no. Really can't afford that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
And I've asked Andrea to come in and talk about some of the things that she has been working on. In fact, part of this sheet, I believe, showed to the district advisory team Wednesday. She's been finding some interesting things. And I'm gonna be honest with you, some of it's, I don't want to say depressing, but when you look at it, could be, some of it's very impressive too. So, so we've got the good and the bad. So.
Right. Yeah, first of all, I want to say I have a smile on my face. I'm very happy to be back doing the RTI and looking at this data. I think some interesting changes from last year to this year have been my location. At first, I thought Jeff was a little crazy putting me up here with him. I didn't know what I was in for. I thought I was going to be next to the superintendent all day long. But it actually has been enjoyable to be actually able to look at the data, kind of neutral for all three buildings across, without seeing the sweet little faces and making the excuses for them with the data. Not to mention the fact that Jeff's right there to holler at and tell him what I need or talk to him about everything all day long. I go through the data when I come up with things. But a couple of things that I've figured out since we've been going in these last few weeks is one thing in our entire district. I've been talking with some of the people from the ISD. The people at the ISD are really impressed with where we're at and how well we're moving ahead with RTI. The problem with that, and the problem that we have, kind of like the way I talk, is we're trying to run a marathon at record pace, and we've never even trained for it. So now's our time to slow down and start tuning everything that we've got in place and working with where we're at. One of the things that we've been looking at, Jeff and I finally have been able to look at the trends we have. We've got data for, we have all of last year, we have 2009-10, we had our winter and spring data, we had our fall and winter from now. So 3 school years worth of data, 1 complete year, 2 and a half years, that we're looking at. And we can look at trends. We've looked at trends with cohorts of groups. So watching our first graders, how they were in first grade, second grade, and third grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, watching groups of kids as they move through, and also looking at trends within each grade level. So what are the strengths and weaknesses within the 3rd grade teachers? What are the strengths and weaknesses within the 8th grade teachers? Because there are strengths everywhere we've looked, and there's always room for us to improve. So those are one of the first areas we're looking at, and we've been working, we've met with Jim, and we're going to be meeting with Carol and just kind of going over some of that with them, of what we found in those trends. Another kind of neat thing that Ames came out with this year, and as I think you're all familiar with the Ames web from last year, they put with it, and I'll just give you these to take one and pass it down. They added a measure to their reports this year that they call the Lexile measure. And the Lexile measure is a universal way of measuring text complexity. Okay. And it looks at a couple different things when it puts that together. It looks at it's got 2 strong predictors of how difficult the text is going to be to comprehend: the word frequency and the sentence structure and length. Okay. The Common Core State Standards has adopted the Lexile measures and brought that into the Common Core, and they've made these bands. And so that front sheet just is a little explanation that I just kind of put in there on front and back of what that is for you.
Okay, so it's the comprehension piece.
It's reading fluency and comprehension. Okay. And what they say is they put a Lexile number report with each child, and they have come up with bands. So if you look on the back side of the sheet that you have there, there's for K1 they don't apply those to Common Core. Obviously we're working on building those foundational strengths. There's a 2-3 band, and they're working off the stretch Lexile band. There's current bands and the stretch bands. So if you see that, a 2-3, grade level 2 to 3 is going to be 450 Lexile to 790. Following me along here. Anyways, they're giving 2-year bands here, or even 3 years in the case of 6 through 8. And they're taking them all the way up to 11th to college career readiness, so preparing them for text that they can read once they hit college. Okay. So one of the things that we did, or I did, and have worked with Jeff on, is if you look at the chart here, there's some things on here that can look not so great, but there's some also really great things if we really look at this. And it follows all the way up. It starts with the 2009-10 school year down to the current year. Okay, so we can follow groups of kids all the way down if you're following along with me. Our 2nd graders down here at the very bottom, it wouldn't have applied to them in 1st grade or kindergarten. Okay. This year's third graders, we have them when they were in second grade and now to third grade. So the yellow is if they were in the Lexile band, according to the Common Core. And then we've got kids above it and kids below that.
The Lexile band represents grade level.
Grade level.
They're meeting grade level expectations, so to speak.
I caution it with grade level expectations because they put them in bands, and when you're looking at a band that expands to grades 2 and 3, it's kind of hard for all your second graders to be there and all your third graders. And when you've got a band that's 6 through 8, they're looking at text complexity that is appropriate for the children to be able to read instructionally and easily. Okay?
So if I understand what you're saying, last year's second graders, 2010, 11, are this year's third graders, that's the same group. So by what you're telling me here is last year, the second graders had 57 students that were in the K-1 band.
Below their Lexile target, yep.
Where this year, they have 25 students that are below the band where they're supposed to be.
And if you want to follow my color code, you have to remember my elementary mentality here. Is that red is meaning that that's how many students are below, yellow is on target, and green would be above, and then your total's there. But if you look all the way down to follow all the way to the very right of your paper, the 6th graders that are now 8th graders. And originally, when they were in 6th grade, there was 11 of them that were above target. Now we have 31. 17 of those are already reading in the 11 to college career readiness band. So there are, even though we see where there's areas we've got to work on to make sure these children are comfortable with the text they're reading, we do have some great strengths here too. What this identifies for us also is we look at some of our 8th graders going into high school next year. And if they're reading that Lexile band, we can work to give support to our high school teachers so that they understand that when they're handing a text to a student, to look at the text Lexile that it is, and they may need a little extra support if they can't read that instructional information very easily. So we can start to use this kind of data this year to move ourselves forward. The other big thing that we're starting to look with right now is the fidelity. The first thing we did is we looked at our core and we looked at our triangles. And we knew we wanted 80% of our core to be solid in what they're doing. Within the last year and a half, we purchased brand new reading materials. Carol's got to help me out because I know now we have it all reading K through 6 or K through 8?
Through 5 for
I'm
reading.
sorry, K through 5.
For Reading Street.
For Reading Street.
Right.
The rest of them have the
6,
Prentice
7,
Hall
8,
that
yes.
follows that. Okay, so we've got a core reading program now, K through 8. Correct? Okay, they just had that before. This year in October, our 1st through 4th grade all finished getting the Envision Pearson, but the 5th grade had
grade had it,
last year or the year before prior, so now we've got a new math core curriculum that they're all working on. We've been trying to run ahead and do all these wonderful things, and there are some great things going on. Our teachers are working very hard, K through 12. But we're going to try to rein back a little bit and slow down and look at these, because the only way we can effectively decide if this core is working or not is to teach it with fidelity and move forward from there. So that's one of the things we're really working on is the core what's working, or is it the core and all these other things that are going on? So working on that to beat them up. The next thing that Jeff and I will be doing is we're starting to drill down to specific areas and weaknesses within the Ames. We're going to try and merge that with Data Director and find out if we can find out where in the Common Core these 2 or 3 specific areas might give us our biggest bang for our buck to move ourselves forward. Questions?
Just
Mary shaking her
can you walk me through,
Yes.
if we look at your chart for 2009, 2010?
Yes.
So if I'm reading this right, the 6th graders there become the 7th graders the following year, correct?
Correct.
And then the 8th graders. So are we getting better or worse there?
Well,
It looks to me like we started bad and got better, and then we're not as good. Am I reading that correctly?
you are. And it's fluctuation too with, yeah, you've got more kids in the red.
Well, plus you've only gained 1 in the yellow over the entire school year.
There's also got 6 more kids.
6 more kids.
Yeah, I
And
understand.
that may have been from out of the district too.
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure I was reading that
Well,
right.
and the tricky thing about this is I'm looking at the Common Core and I'm trying to understand more and more about this. I've only been on this job for how many weeks now? I don't know. But anyhow, I've been talking with the people at the ISD. This is all brand new to them too. And when I was talking to them, and I had several conversations, they referred me to the people, the data specialists they talked to, because no one in the county started looking at this and asking them questions about this yet. They may have seen it, but they haven't been asking them questions about it. The one thing with following at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, all 6, 7, and 8 is one long band. So, you know, that's a pretty big chunk of Lexiles in there, and as the kids progress and move through, you know, so we do have to kind of watch that. But you are right, and those are the trends we're looking for, because everything on it's not perfect. But it shows us some weaknesses and areas we can work on.
I mean, I'm looking at 3rd grade in 2009-10. You know, you went from 50 children in the red zone to 92 in the red zone, and then back down to 46.
And you know what I think that attributes to? Is that the 4-5 is a brand new band. You see how like when it's a 2-3 band, now I'm not making excuses for our kids, because we've got to do something with this, and I understand that, but that's one of the trends I'm noticing is that when they're 2nd graders, there's less in there than when they're in 3rd grade, because it's a 2-3 band, and you've got to look at that. And that's nothing other than what the Common Core has set out, and that's the only way I was looking at those.
Well, we don't want to blame the messenger, you're the messenger of the
You can blame me,
information.
Sean.
But this is the system that we can monitor and track the students now.
It's one of the systems.
Well, and now, I look at cohort groups, but I'm also looking at grade level. Now, if you look at 4th grade in 2009-10, now go to 4th grade in 2010-11. Now go to 4th grade in 2011 and 12, and you see it's, you said it, I did, stagnant.
And that's one of the things we're following with
There's
some
not
of
any
these.
movement.
Those are some of the things we're looking at, not just on these, but on even the Ames Triangle. We're looking for stagnant areas and what can we do then to start to make some movement. And we've noticed, there are some groups of kids that are high, and they might be a high group, but they might be stagnant at that high group. We've got to still do something there, so.
8th grade has been a fairly high group all along.
So it's just another way we can look at the numbers and use this with our.
One of the things that's really exciting is that Andrea and Cindy Farley are working on getting the Ames into data directory, which then correlates to our GLICs. So we're gonna be able to really drill down to the specific GLICs. Now, what's tough here is not always do the GLICs relate necessarily to the Common Core.
Right.
You know, there's not a clean tie there. So, so there's a lot of work to be done. But we really want to look, as Andrea said it a few minutes ago, we want to look at, drill down and find those GLICs that we can make the most impact on our students with. So, and we're close to getting there.
And I think we're realizing how fast we're running and everything, that we've got to slow down and make finite, solid changes that'll make us go forward. We've experimented in it, and now we're gonna try it.
I think now that we've gathered some data, it's time to analyze it and decide where we have holes and plug those holes and.
Right, I mean, we know there are some big holes, we recognize that, we know that, but the other thing we have to remember is we have this brand new core, and we have to give that a chance to be effective. We spent how many thousands of dollars on that, and unless we ask them to teach that with fidelity and give them opportunities to learn to teach that, I mean, I'm looking at, I can't remember how many teachers just got brand new reading materials this year, and then in October, got boxes upon boxes of math materials. I was one of those teachers, you know, and it's everything day by day to try and understand and teach yourself to be able to teach the kids. So we're working on that, and we also recognize, like, 2nd grade's a big hole. Our 2nd grade teachers, they didn't have the core last year, and now they're teaching it. So their kids went through kindergarten first, and then they were brand new teaching it last year. The group they have this year never had the core. Next year, they'll probably start to notice some different things because those kids have got it for a year, you know. So, you know, we're starting to realize where some of the holes are and start to plug those holes and immerse them with some more of our interventions.
I got a question for Carol.
Sure.
Are you able to look at a chart like this and monitor your morning RTI by how much reading or how much math?
We're doing this, the same tests, they're used as progress monitors, and anybody in an intensive group is tested weekly with this assessment.
But that's per student?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we look at it as grade level also, because the grade level, and we're actually doing at 6 or 5, 8 now, our groups, if we see kids at 5, 6, and 7, they have the same needs, we have cross grade groupings now.
Correct.
So they're doing it at the grade level and at the school level. I mean, we're always into the data, and we're also throwing on top of that the MEP data that we're starting to look at too. And with universal screeners, you have to remember, they're still the universal screeners. They're like, you go to the doctor and they go, oh, you put on 10 pounds, something's going on here. So then they look into that to see what's causing that. And that's what, nobody personal here.
Nothing going on at the weight loss center at the middle school down there, okay?
Well, there is, actually, it's that dump your own thing, but I'm not gonna go into that right now. So we look at that. For instance, with the 8th grade this year, we had a huge group of kids that didn't score well in it, and the teachers looked at that and said, these kids aren't in the red, what's the problem with this? So we rescreen them and look at them again. So this isn't the end-all, be-all piece of data either, that's the beginning.
What was the results of that? What was the?
Sometimes the maze, it's a reading passage that they have to read so quickly and use a comprehension.
Okay.
If they have no prior knowledge to it,
It could be
and
the
it makes-
passage.
exactly.
Sometimes it's merely a passage.
Right.
Sometimes it's a matter if they can connect to something that's in there or not. I mean, it could be about Model T cars, and I have
Exactly.
absolutely no clue, and so I might read it at a slower pace, and I would read something about, you know, going snowboarding and getting hurt or something.
Exactly. And the other thing that we've been finding about Reading Street is Reading Street has a very high expectation that at 5th grade, they've had it K 1, 2, 3, 4. So when our 5th graders are getting it for the first time, they haven't had these other instructions the year before, so we're noticing some holes there, and as the kids have had it 2 or 3 years in a row,
If we
more
could
of those
make it
will
a
get.
perfect world, we would've gone back and we would've started with
Right.
K1 getting it and then building up from there, because they have to have the foundation of blocks. You're trying to build a house right now that doesn't have a solid foundation.
Exactly.
And we've gotta figure out where our biggest holes are to fill. But we can do it.
Have you found it beneficial to be up at this building?
I think so. I really was kind of nervous about it to begin with, but yes, I am glad that Jeff suggested that. I think my position with him, I would've been on the phone or emailing him all day long. What?
I said, you want to be in the closet.
I put him in the closet down there. No, but I really do. I mean, I really thought that I was gonna miss that, but it has worked out, and I really think that I can neutrally look at the data, and I feel like high school teachers are coming. I had one after school today, came and wanted some Ames reports, because they needed something for some kids in their 8th grade stuff, and I ran it down to her after school, and she was like, wow. It was, you know, I could be around, and I think it's a better choice.
This is exciting because one of my concerns was the communication between schools, and this seemed like it's really tying it together.
I haven't been in the middle school for a while, but we'll get there. Carol's gonna call me, and we're working on that.
That's right.
Ames
We're gonna go hang out with you tomorrow.
And actually, where MEP